All right, guys. This is the Total Potential Podcast. We're here with Dom. I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell you guys a little bit about all that he does.
Tony, thank you for having me on, brother. Truly a pleasure. I had a great time you talking on my podcast, which I'll do a shameless plug here in a second. But
Days with Dom.
we recorded a couple weeks ago. Looking forward to getting that podcast out there on my end here soon in the next week or so. So, like you said, I'm Dom Fusco, and I am a senior at Dickinson College. I am a college football player. Well, I was until recently when our season was canceled, but played 3 years of college football and had senior year canceled. I started my own podcast coming up on about like 8 months ago. So it's called Days with Dom, but as Tony knows, we are in the process of rebranding, name changing, and things of that nature. So you check it out. Don't be surprised if you see a name change here shortly. But I'm involved in a lot of things at school, which inspired me to meeting people at school, and just being inspired by these individuals inspired me to start this podcast during quarantine, where I became really curious about life and different people and their backgrounds and their journeys, their struggles, triumphs. So that's kind of what the podcast is about. And it's kind of just hearing these people's journeys and sharing it with other people, and just, inspiring them to live purposefully. But, I also I don't want to be pigeonholed as like this self-help guy, because I haven't had these life experiences. I'm 21 years old. So it's really just about my inquisitiveness for life in general, and just trying to show people that there's so much to be experienced in this life. And there's so much to learn, and just putting that into existence, I think, is crucial.
Absolutely. And I think, you are the model example of someone that I would have never seen on social media, right? That, you're supposed to be, having parties with your friends, like enjoying your time, getting ready for the semester, getting ready for that, next job. And I think, it's an opportunity for me, that I've been on social media for the past, few years in this wave of saturation. And I think now, people like you, people like Krista as well, coming onto social media, people that wouldn't typically, be investing their time into it, and very outstanding people. So, as I mentioned, Krista, I got to be on her podcast as well as, her be on mine. And I really appreciate you guys, because all of these years of me helping produce for so many other people, I had never myself been invited on a podcast, so I definitely want to give you a lot of credit for, opening that up for me. So getting into the podcast game, what was that for you? Like learning as far as like the technical side of it, you know, how did you find out all of that information? Like I know you follow different Facebook groups that have been very beneficial to you. Is there any specific person or situation that inspired you to get into podcasts specifically?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a few people and a few different podcasts or that I've listened to pretty consistently. Like I've been a big fan of podcasts for a while, and they've just been a great way for me to learn. I think audio stimulation is like in the future. Like it's the future of the way people are going to learn. I think so. I mean, even with like audiobooks and everything like that, more people listen to audiobooks than they do honestly read anymore.
Sure, and
But
also a part of that
yeah,
too is people don't wanna be alone. They, like,
yeah,
constantly
exactly.
want, like, some sort of sound coming in,
Mhm.
whether or not it's Call Her Daddy or Joe Rogan, that
Yeah,
it's something.
right. So I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, like as you just mentioned. Um, have listened to Call Her Daddy just because I know I didn't make it a full episode, but I was I understand why it's so popular in the female community, but not
Little
for me.
Gluck
But
Gluck
anyway,
9000 action,
right,
shout
exactly.
out.
So Joe Rogan, just I went from listening to him to studying him and how he's able to grasp his audience, keep their attention for hours on end. People just really swear by him and binge his things. So just trying to listen to him and the way he articulates himself, the way he follows up with questions. So I kind of transitioned into being a fan, or not, yeah, being a fan to kind of just being a student of podcasts, as well as Lewis Howes, who runs the School of Greatness podcast, who was also a college football player and started a podcast, and now he's huge. He's huge.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's countless other ones. I have probably 10 to 12 podcasts that are in my rotation, but those are the two that come to mind right off the bat. And just going from, and the way these guys all started out as those two guys specifically, Joe Rogan and Lewis Howes, they both started out like very blue collar, didn't come from a whole lot, were athletes, just kind of have a passion for people and an interest in learning and helping people. So in their respective ways. So I just figured, why not join the party? And
Yeah.
it's a great way to meet people. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's a great way to
exactly.
connect.
Networking and
Mhm,
business
exactly.
and I know obviously the Rona has affected your school life. How else has it, coming online? Did you have classes online?
Yeah, dude. So I have not physically been back on campus in a class since March of last year. So I was online for, like we all were,
Yeah.
for the duration of the spring once Corona came, and then my school went on like full lockdown in the fall, so we didn't have anybody back. So I was home for that, and then even still, so I'm going into my last semester of senior year,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You
and
still got a
yeah,
semester to go.
still have a semester left. I will be 6 weeks at home on Zoom classes again, and then I'll go back to school for 6 weeks and finish it out there. So at least I'll have a little bit of time on campus. But it's definitely been a struggle not having
Yeah.
football in my life, which took up, probably it was a full-time job basically on top of school. And so the podcast and the social media and
Yeah.
all the digital media things that I started from scratch. I never did any of that, and I learned. I'm still learning, but has kind of filled that void
No,
of
and
football.
we've had
Yeah.
that conversation because I think what people don't recognize is how important the relationship and the rapport is, whether or not it's with
Mhm.
your football friends or it's with frats or if it's with any of those friend groups. Because ultimately, who you party with, if somebody's daddy has some big business and they're looking to hire people, oh shit, like Dom's a good friend. I hang out with him every night. Let's give him a call, and that how many people from like a macro perspective are going to lose out on those sort of opportunities where yeah, education's important, like getting that piece of paper, like it definitely, solidifies you, you're able to move on. But those relationships are what really culminate into a career. Because at the end of the day, you want to be able to work with people that you love, and why not, get your friends involved in a business, and I think coming online and Zooming, it's not like, people are hanging out after class in a Zoom chopping it up, right? Or
No,
or
yeah.
what talk about the dynamic a little bit. Like, is there any fun? Or is it just like strictly probably class and it ends and it's over, right?
Right, yeah. And like you quickly, like you talked about education. I don't think you need a college degree to in order to like prove yourself or anything like that. I think we're past that stage of life. But for me, yeah, in a way. But for me, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to go to college. Like I've told you, I'm the first one on my dad's side of the family to go to college. And my family, I don't come from a lot. I come from a very like modest family, and I got a lot of scholarships, and I worked really hard to get where I'm at. But the main thing I've learned about school is it's, you know, you take the experiences more than like what you learn in the classroom, and you learn more how to be a critical thinker, how to be a lifelong learner, and make connections. Like you said, I think that's the most important thing. And just not going to school for the wrong reasons. I think there's too many people who go to school for the wrong reasons. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, get themselves into a ton of debt or waste their parents' money. But, it's, I think there's a gratitude factor. And wait, what was the original question?
No, I think
Just talking about class, talking
oh,
about like Zoom class.
how is
Right.
there any fun in the Zoom class, or is it
Right.
very
So
cut and dry?
yeah, no, it's not really. They try to do like virtual events as they would at school, but like, I've never been to any of them, and I don't really honestly know anybody
I
who's
I
been
I
to them.
saw I
Yeah.
think I even saw, like, a teacher playing a movie on Zoom or something. Did you see
Yeah,
that,
it's
or
just
has anybody been doing have you
I
experienced
mean,
that?
they try to emulate some of the things like alumni weekend and all these things on
Or, like,
via
Halloween or something, and then
right.
everybody
They just try
dresses
to do
up.
all these things, and it's just like, A for effort, but
Yeah. But it's new,
people are
you
Zoom
know?
fatigued. People
Yeah.
are Zoom fatigued. They don't wanna be on class, let alone spend their Saturday night on a on a Zoom with,
Mm,
people, so,
yeah. Well,
in
and
my
that's
opinion.
that's the hard part, that I see where, like, really, where you go to school, it's about your environment, and who the people are that you're getting to know. That's, a big part of school, I think. And, moving on from that, talking about other, business things as well as, school, like, I don't know. I mean, who would you say? Because you don't really have like a dedicated team, but like,
Mhm,
who would you say in your life has helped you be successful? Like,
mhm. Yeah, and I think, it's funny you say that. I think success is something I've been thinking a lot about lately. How do you weigh the metrics of what success truly is to a person? It's like, all right, this are you successful in this group or like amongst these people or in this niche
no,
or
that's a
whatever it
great
may.
like
Yeah, yeah,
analytical perspective on that. Because
yeah,
typically I'm talking
yeah,
to artists, I'm talking to people that have producer friends, and that there's all kinds of elements to music, right? And you're
mhm,
not in music, like you have the fitness
mhm,
background, so it's a little bit different.
yeah.
So I guess it doesn't apply as much. That I think being able to talk to different people, has there been any specific podcast guests that you've had, that
Mhm. Yeah, sorry, and I didn't mean to
sure.
go off
No, it's all
track
good.
on your original
No, it's
question,
good.
but, yeah, no, I don't like, I don't have a team that works for
Sure.
me or
And you're
anything like that,
21,
but
like you're just starting your
right,
podcast. Like,
mhm,
success is a very loaded term.
yeah.
That
So I definitely have mentors and people in my life, who have had, more life experiences and made mistakes and had success, found success. So I have like some specific people, like for example, Tim Seifert. I often mention him in my podcast, who got me my internship this summer. And while the internship, it didn't work out, and that's not the field that I want to go to, he's going to be a guest on my podcast here coming up soon. He's a very busy guy, but he is, one of the best leaders I've ever encountered, and just a very put together, well-rounded guy, and he will help you. He helps me out with whatever it may be, and then I have had a lot of teammates in football who have pushed me. I have people like you and Krista, who we're kind of building our own little team here,
yeah.
who we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. So, obviously you guys collaborating with you guys
Yeah, I'm
and
surprised that I told her that I was gonna bring her up first of, because like that's how I noticed her was through you.
right.
Her being on your podcast twice, or at least so I thought, and
Hmm.
then further that I found out that you guys had just talked for such a long time and that you split it up into two different episodes. But,
Yep.
at the time I saw like a reoccurring guest and I was like, oh wow, like that's great.
Mhm.
Like that's the type of people that I want to be around. So what have you learned from Krista? Like, how did you meet her? Obviously you have the family connection with her brother, but
Mhm.
what was that experience for you that you really inspired her to start her own podcast as well?
Yeah, so like you said, I know Krista's brother. So when she was looking to start her podcast, like over the summer was when the idea came about. She hit me up and said, "Hey, Dane's sister. I'm looking to start my own podcast. He put me in your direction. Can we talk?" So yeah, I talked to her once, and we had a really great conversation. Talked for a while, and then talked again, and eventually she came on my podcast, and that was a while ago, but I think like sometime in the fall, maybe like
And I think
October.
she was even like
Yeah.
walking outside.
Yeah, she did like she like did half the interview she was in the car driving, and then half the interview she was walking around New York City. So yeah, it was pretty funny. And she's really seen some exponential growth since then. And it's just funny because she actually came to me for advice when we started out, and now I often go to her for advice on things such as things that I'm not so great at, such as social media, building a following, and like all
Yeah,
those
but
kind
you're
of things.
still getting good
Yeah,
impressions.
yeah, but like
Yeah.
it's
I
not
mean,
like
Chris is getting like 10,000, 20,000 on a dog video. I mean,
yeah,
it's
but
pretty
like also
wild.
yeah, also she is very consistent and adamant with her posts.
Oh,
She
true.
knows how to capture an audience. I mean, she was a journalism major, so she's pretty good at like the copywriting aspect of it. And for me, I can't be on social media for that long before I get bored and like have to get off of it. And I really like I don't get
Yeah.
often that I don't even get on it that often. Like when I get on it, it's to post or drop some comments or something like that. Like I really can't be one of those people that sits on social media all day. And I mean, granted, that's one of the keys to building a big following. So that's something that I'm trying to learn from her. But we have her and we've had a good relationship since then. We've learned a lot from each other, help each other out a lot. And as you came into the picture, we all bounce things off of
Learning
each
from
other
oh
too.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, little humble brag action. Yeah, I think it's been a process, and I think a lot of people can learn from this where like you said, like you want to go through your own experiences yourself to learn, in order to build, from a place of experience and a place from credibility. And I had that experience working with, very briefly with Post, and there has been other like Mahogany's experience with
Mhm,
Gary Vee as well, that credibility is important. That if you
mhm,
don't have that like come to Jesus type of moment, you just kind of feel like you're another ingredient, in the pie, that it's
sure.
hard to be able to really stick to something, you
Mhm.
know. So if you had that opportunity to have your and this is a full disclosure, a question from Krista, what would be your dream job? Like, I know you're obviously interested in the fitness, field. We kind of talked a little bit about that. What, even beyond that or in the fitness field, like, is there any specific dream job that you have?
It's funny because I try to think about this a lot,
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to think about. If it was up to me, my dream would be to like would be to podcast full time, like make a significant living off of podcasting, like what Joe Rogan does, where he can work the bare, like he shows up, he lives does his entire day, trains, works out, spends time with his family, hunts, travels, experiences life, and then at night comes in and talks to an extremely successful or interesting individual, whether it be Elon Musk, Dan Bilzerian, Jamie Foxx, Kevin Hart, like just from all realms of life. I don't I want to continuously be learning
Yeah. Yeah.
and Because like you said, I I love fitness. I spend about 2 hours a day, on working out, exercising, things like that. And I spend a lot of time like researching, health and nutrition and things like that. But I didn't go to school for it. I don't have like a passion, I would say, for like to be like a personal trainer or even like a strength and conditioning
But you
trainer.
said lifestyle, right?
Lifestyle. Like, I really enjoy people like Nick Bear, who big shout out to Nick Bear. Like I watch his YouTube videos every single day. And he is the founder of Bear Performance Nutrition. He was an Army platoon leader up until, pretty like a couple of years ago. He was an Army platoon leader. He has one of the most successful and most well known nutrition like lines in the industry. And he started just selling pre-workout out of his dorm room in Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And him transitioning from an Army platoon leader to then a bodybuilder, and now like an Ironman
Hmm.
participant and athlete, and just
So maybe Krista
how he
needs to start
balances that with
hooking.
like
I think
daily life.
Krista
And
needs to start
yeah,
hooking you up with like products to sell. It sounds like, like
yeah. I
maybe
mean,
that would help uh create that income. Really,
yeah, it's
to
like
have different sponsorships or different promotions, and
yeah. To be honest, I don't. Again, I'm 21.
yeah,
Like
you don't know. Yeah,
what my dream is now, what my dream
it
job is
change. Yeah,
now, might be different from 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. Um, that's why I think it's good to have goals and aspirations, but I also, my mom gets mad at me all the time because she thinks that like not mad at me, but she's just like, you need to just like stop, enjoy life, have some more like experiences, like you're young, this
with
and that, like if
Rona, like that's impossible.
yeah,
For you to
I
travel.
yeah,
Or to
yeah,
do
I know.
anything.
So,
Yeah.
but she's just like, just stop and enjoy life sometimes. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to be successful. The more and more you just put yourself out there and just experience life, and don't pigeonhole yourself. I've used the word a couple times, but like
Yeah, absolutely.
don't stay stuck in the mud in one area. Like learn. I was reading this morning. I read a quote, and it was like learn a lot or learn a little about a lot. So you want to learn. I want to just be very well rounded in a lot
Yeah.
of different things and just
No, and
meet as
that's
many people as I
yeah,
can.
no, and that's like the same dynamic that I've really been on where like I almost look at like each thing that I do as if it's just like the next challenge.
Right.
That how can I overcome, and whether or not it was like my detailing business or like restoring cars and then fishing and then now hip hop and then hip hop into the fitness industry, that it's just kind of like, how can I recreate, how can I reinvent myself, how can I challenge myself. And
Mhm.
I'm loving the fitness side of things, dealing with people like you, and otherwise it's nice.
Mhm.
You're not going to come and hurt me, and it's great. That no smoke. I'm a bitch. Like I don't want no smoke. I don't want nothing to be on the floor. Like I'm good. That
Yeah.
this is nice. Getting to talk to people like you and Krista, and really being able to. It's just quality people, really.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that. And so moving on, what sort of short-term goals that you have with your podcast, as well as any like long-term vision? We obviously just talked about dream jobs, I guess. So anything
Yeah.
short-term that you would want to announce? Like I know you're obviously brainstorming as far as a rebrand.
Mhm.
Like, is there any short-term things that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah. So short term, like you and I have talked about, like we just talked about on here, is rebranding the podcast and not changing the way that I do things. I like the way I do things, but more so creating a brand that resembles a community that I'm trying to build, and kind of just discovering who I am and what I want the podcast to be. Like I've
Yeah.
done whatever 36 episodes so far. over the course of the past 8 or 9 months. But I'm still focusing on like who my target audience is, who, like, what message am I trying to send. So just figuring out those little things and then moving on to, finding,
The
or
purpose,
not
your
finding,
own purpose, that I
right.
think
Yeah, right.
that
Finding my,
that's really what
right.
we talked about, and how
Yeah.
it is so important that, like, last night I was talking to Joe, and it's like there's a lot of artists that are just putting out music for the sake of putting out music so they can
Hmm.
say that they put out music. And I think not enough people know their purpose, right? And
Yeah.
I think about myself, like last night, like, what is my purpose? And obviously I've got the studio, like that's the purpose, to generate, connections, to ultimately bring to the studio, or to be able to build business out of that and to grow outside of the city. And I know media, interests you as well, like as far as editing and things like that. Using Premiere Pro, like different things like that, like more on the technical side. Like, do you have any
Yeah.
questions for me? Like, is there, because obviously we talk pretty often, but like,
Mhm.
has there been any questions or thoughts that you have for me potentially that have come up, or, since we've had the podcast? Like, I know we really covered a lot of things, but
Mhm.
like, is there any
Yeah. No.
other specific things that were on your mind?
Yeah. I mean, technical stuff. I don't want to bore anybody listening with like any kind of technical stuff, but
Yeah.
before I jump into that, what you said made me think of a quote, and it's that I heard and or read, and it's, what you do is very important, but why you do it is the most important thing. And so, like, why you do something is, ultimately going to determine how many listeners you get, how many followers you get, and creating that binge factor and making people want to like go down the rabbit hole in your content. And so just having, I think too many people, like you said, do it just to do it, and they want the self gratification, the instant gratification. But are you, what problem are you solving, or what value are you bringing is the most important thing. So, like I said, for me, just trying to figure out what that is, but not being in too much of a rush or putting too much pressure on myself to find it out.
Yeah.
Like we said, having life experiences and just growing and being patient. But in moving forward in the future, we're gonna be collaborating and things like that, and it just creating more visually appealing content, and stuff that strikes the eye of potential watchers and viewers
Yeah.
and listeners. So I'm excited for that. And like I said, I'm not going to bore anybody with like
Yeah.
with technical issues. We can
Sure,
talk
sure.
about that off camera.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I, the point is to always be able to, be improving, and that's really what
Mhm.
I want to be able to put out, to my audience as well. I'm trying to think. Okay, 10:30. So you've got some time.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
see. Looking at do you have any New Year's resolutions? Anything with 2021? Like, I kind of feel like we're like running around in a circle here in a sense. Like, what? Because it's like, what can we really do? Like, we're just kind of waiting until the Rona's over, really. 10 years
yeah.
later, we're just gonna be sitting around talking about the same stuff.
Yeah. Like I know we're definitely constricted in what we can do in terms of like where we can go and like some of the things that we have access to, but I really don't think that it should stop us from building or growing, or because the more and more I learn about history, it's like the Apples and Microsofts and other major companies that have solved problems were developed in the heat of depressions and
Mm,
other sort of global disasters. So it's in this time where we have some extra time on our hands. A lot of people don't have to go to work every day and work a 9 to 5 and spend 2 hours commuting and this and that. So you're giving back a lot of that time, and it's how do you reinvest that time right now, and build the foundation for when life resumes, life stop, like everything
yeah, and we
normal.
wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for the Rona, in a certain
Exactly.
extent.
I say that all the time. Because and that's kind of sad. I see people who are just sitting and staying stagnant and haven't done anything over the past
Yeah.
couple of months, just waiting for everything to go back to normal. When right now is, you either see it as, a roadblock, or you see it as an opportunity, and you expand your mindset on how you're going to grow. And so, in the future, you're more prepared for when things come along like this again, because, who knows if we'll ever see anything like this again. But
Yeah.
what I do know is that we're definitely going to face hardships. Even every single day, we're going to go through things. So in terms of going back to your original question, for me, in terms of 2021, obviously my biggest goal is to graduate college. And, as long as I just do my shit and get that done, I'll be out of there in May, which is kind of sad because, missing out on like a
That
year and a half
co-op.
of,
Yeah.
missing
Or
out on
that,
about a year and a half of school. Like, obviously I'm very blessed and grateful for all the people I've met and the growth, the self-realization that I've had over the past couple of months. I still miss playing football. I still miss my day-to-day, living with my roommates and working in the office of admissions, broadcasting basketball and lacrosse games, and, meeting with clubs and activities, and just all that kind of stuff, living on my own. So I do miss that. And in terms of like fitness, I'm training for a half marathon, which,
oh yeah, you were talking about
yeah,
making content for that. Yeah.
right. Yeah. We'll see. But
Yeah. Or
I'm,
I'm telling you to make content for it then. Okay.
I'm in
Yeah.
week 5 of a 12-week training program for a half marathon. Once I do that, half marathon to full marathon prep begins, which, will I do that by the end of the year? We'll see. We'll see. I think I can do it.
Because they're
So
having marathons right now?
I mean,
Or just in
hopefully,
general, you're like acting as
in
if there'll be
right,
marathons.
in general, I'm doing so for the half marathon. I'm looking into seeing, if I
You're
could.
running
I'm going
your
to do
own
it.
half marathon. Oh
I'm running
my
my own
god,
half
that could,
marathon.
dude, that could be a business right there. Like
I'm running my own half
individual
marathon.
marathons.
I'm running a half marathon. I'm going to see if, I can do maybe some fundraising for a charity or
Mm,
something like that
see, that's great content. Like,
for
yeah.
that. And then for the full marathon, absolutely, when I do that, and I say when I do that because I will do it.
Exactly.
Um, I will do it. And mind you, I never ran more than like 3 miles ever until a few months ago. And now, like, that's easy for me. But it's the putting myself through pain and like
Enjoy it.
having
Yeah.
like, how far can you go? Is pushes me,
Yeah. Cameron
my
Haynes or something running, or,
right, Cam Haynes, exactly.
you
So
know,
guys like that, it's just like how far
or
can you
that
go?
other guy,
David Goggins.
David Goggins, running
Yeah.
100
So
100 miles or something in the
yeah, Jesse
desert.
Itzler. There's all these
Yeah,
guys that have
from
done that.
Rogan.
But right, yeah, exactly. So when I do the marathon, I definitely want to do it for a purpose. Like, obviously I'm doing it for me, but if I can raise money for, a charity or something like that, that's definitely something that I want to do. And it
Yeah.
was inspired by David Goggins, who he was in the military and he was a big bodybuilder, but he wanted to raise money for like the Wounded Warrior Project or something along those lines, for like veterans children to go to college. Some organization along the lines of that. And so, when you're running and when you're training for a greater purpose other than yourself, it pushes you a little bit farther.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My main account, like my personal account, is Domm Fusco, and then my
And you
podcast
probably want
is,
to spell that. People know how to spell
yeah,
Dom.
yeah. Well, it's Dom with just 2 M's, so Dom
Oh,
Fusco
okay.
with 2 M's, and then
How you
my
spell
podcast,
Fusco?
yeah, yeah. You can find it. You can find me Days with Dom podcast is my podcast show. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Got a Facebook page. I got a newsletter. You can find me on YouTube, Dominic Fusco. I'm everywhere. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, man. And I appreciate you coming on for sure.
Of course. No,
You
that
know?
was always a great time talking to you. And
Oh yeah.
I I always feel a little bit more, motivated, more inspired, and after I talk to you. So, always good,
Oh
brother.
yeah. Oh yeah. I appreciate it, man. Well,
Of
thank you.
course.
And, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and I'll link all of Dom's links down below. So definitely, if you don't already know, this was Anthony Marshall and this was the Total Potential Podcast. I want to thank everybody for checking it out.
Thank you.